the 17th century, winter was more than a season. It was a force that reshaped daily life. Across northern Europe, temperatures began to fall. Rivers that once carried trade froze solid. Fields that fed villages lay buried beneath snow. The period became known as the Little Ice Age. For rural families, survival depended on preparation. Autumn was a race against the coming frost. Root vegetables were pulled from hardened soil. Turnips, carrots, and cabbages were stored carefully. Fish were salted to last through months of darkness. Meat was smoked slowly over low flames. Firewood was cut, split, and stacked high. Each log meant another hour of warmth. Cabin walls were inspected for cracks. Straw and cloth sealed gaps against icy drafts. Roofs were reinforced before heavy snowfall. Livestock shelters were lined with thick bedding. Because once winter arrived, movement would stop. And what remained inside the cabin would decide everything. When the first deep snow fell, isolation began. Frozen rivers ended trade and travel. Families turned inward, toward the hearth. Inside timber walls, fire became life itself. The hearth was never allowed to die completely. Too much wood burned meant famine later. Too little heat meant frost inside the home. Ice crept along window edges overnight. Breath hung in the air even indoors. Snow was gathered and melted for drinking water. Every pot required patience and precious fuel. Outside, ponds froze into thick glass. Ice had to be broken with iron tools. Each strike drained strength in the freezing wind. Meals grew smaller as weeks passed. Bread was sliced thin, almost translucent. Stew stretched simple vegetables into sustenance. Salted fish provided rare bursts of protein. Nothing was wasted, not even crumbs. Hunger was a constant, quiet companion. Rations were calculated with care. A single mistake could mean starvation in late winter. Yet food alone was not enough. Warmth had to be preserved at all costs. Clothing was layered in thick wool. Linen trapped moisture beneath outer coats. Leather boots stiffened in the cold. Hands cracked and bled from freezing air. Even sleep required strategy. Beds were placed close to fading embers. Blankets were layered heavily over straw mattresses. Nights stretched long and silent. Wind pressed against timber walls. Snow struck doors with steady force. Blizzards could last for days. Fences vanished beneath rising drifts. Cabins became islands in a frozen sea. Venturing outside carried risk. But sometimes necessity demanded it. Firewood supplies had to be checked constantly. A shrinking woodpile meant danger ahead. Some braved the forest despite deep snow. Axes echoed sharply through frozen air. Each fallen branch was a small victory. Hunting offered both hope and uncertainty. Tracks in the snow told silent stories. A single hare could feed a household for days. But tracking prey consumed precious energy. And winter punished exhaustion quickly. Livestock required daily attention. Cows and goats were sheltered in wooden sheds. Straw bedding insulated against frozen ground. Their breath rose in pale clouds each morning. If animals weakened, so did their owners. Milk could mean survival for children. Frozen water troughs had to be broken open. Ice formed again by nightfall. Routine became protection against despair. Work gave structure to endless white days. Storm clouds gathered without warning. The sky darkened long before sunset. Wind carried snow like drifting smoke. Doors were reinforced against the coming gale. Window shutters were secured tightly. Inside, fires were fed carefully. Water was stored before the storm peaked. Food was prepared in advance. Then the blizzard arrived. Snow fell sideways in violent sheets. Timber walls groaned under pressure. Visibility vanished beyond a few steps. The world outside disappeared completely. Inside, candlelight flickered against wooden beams. Families waited in tense silence. Hours stretched into long nights. The fire burned lower. Fuel had to be rationed even now. Patience became as vital as heat. Endurance defined survival. When the storm finally weakened, silence followed. Snowdrifts buried fences and pathways alike. Doors had to be forced open from inside. The landscape emerged reshaped and unfamiliar. Yet survival meant beginning again immediately. Firewood supplies were checked once more. Food stores were counted carefully. Animals were inspected for signs of weakness. There was no time to rest for long. Winter was rarely a single storm. Another wave of cold always followed. Weeks turned into months of vigilance. Strength was measured in persistence. Communities that endured shared knowledge. Skills were passed quietly from one generation to the next. How to store, how to ration, how to wait. the Little Ice Age reshaped economies and borders. But inside small wooden cabins, survival remained deeply personal. In the coldest winters, humanity endured, not by conquering nature, but by adapting to it.